What's going on, Darren? How you doing, man?
I'm A-okay. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. So kind of a different version of our podcast here. We figured go Zoom this route and kind of see how that works for things, and it kind of just works out for our schedule better and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So today we're going to kind of talk about sports psychology, whether it's like football, soccer, and even that esports type approach to like the mindset, because in reality, a lot of people don't understand that esports is still technically a sport.
I love how you brought that up.
Even though it's not a physical aspect, but it's a lot more mental, I would think, than it physically is, as far as like stress can go, anxiety can go. There's a lot more haters in a sense, and we'll talk about that. Compared to a traditional sports like soccer, football, baseball, wrestling, stuff like that. So there's always that there's a lot more negativity that kind of comes on with esports. And it's something I've been watching a lot of in the last probably about month and a half, because I'm getting kind of back into Fortnite, and all these different people that just come out of nowhere. They sucked for 6 months, and like just like that, they're just really good. And it's whether it's PC or they're playing on controller, like it's something about it that it's not like, oh, I was just born to be a Fortnite player. Like Fortnite came out like three years ago now. So 2017, 2018. Yeah. So like 4 years. Yeah. 4 years now.
Yeah. To go off of what you said real quick, as in people coming up like out of nowhere. And there's also people in esports, and even obviously for physical sports, that they also stay at the top for a while.
Correct.
There has been a few Fortnite people that I've seen at least been at the top for quite some time for a while. So there's a reason for that. So eventually, me and you will get into why, maybe someone will stay at the top for a while.
So I think the first question we should kind of maybe start off is like the mindset, right? Because that's kind of what psychology is, right? It's how you think. So my question that I kind of came up with was like, how can people change from like a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, right? So like, what is a fixed mindset, like in your perspective? Like what do you think of a fixed mindset?
I would say a fixed mindset is almost like you wake up every day and you're almost thinking the same, nothing changes, you don't like change, you go through your day the same routine. Let's say you're 9 to 5, you wake up and you have to stop at McDonald's for your breakfast, and you just don't like change, and you're always stressed out, and you feel bad for yourself, and you want people to feel bad for you. That's at least like, if you have a fixed mindset, I feel like that's where your life will head. Now that could be different when you're 14, when you're growing and your mind is growing. You should have difficult obstacles in front of you, I think, when you're around that age, because it builds you as a person and makes you more of an adult. But so that's just the future aspect. But if we're talking about just the mind itself, having a fixed mindset is definitely unhealthy, in my opinion. I'm not sure if I'm hitting I'm not sure if I'm around the right area for you, but your question was brought up, and I think what I've said is kind of what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah.
What do you think on the fixed side of it?
So on the fixed like mindset aspect of it, like when I think it's like a negative thing, right? It's the person that tells you you'll never be great. It's the person that tells you suck every day. It's the person like that maybe you're on a team and says you're god awful, you should stop playing, you should go home and do nothing with your life. It's the person that tells somebody they're a loser. It's the person that's the bully, right? Like when I think of a fixed mindset, like that's what I think of. I think of it from a negative perspective, because they're going to tell people they'll never change. And kind of like what you said, those people aren't changing. The ones that are telling them that they'll never change, they're the person that's telling them they're a loser, right? So how does this like kind of translate with like just like esports perspective? I would say like it's somebody who says that they suck at the game and they'll never get great, right? From that perspective. Now translating to wrestling or soccer, it's that person that somebody who's like the really good kid on the team is telling that kid absolutely sucks because he's an underclassman or something like that, right? Like that's having a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Right. You're not encouraging your teammates to get better. You're yelling at them. you're telling them that they suck and they'll never get good, right? So like from that perspective, like that's kind of what I think of like when it comes to a fixed mindset. Another kind of type of fixed mindset could be from like parents, right? With going back to the esports and people not believing, like a lot of parents often have this fixed mindset. And what we know about the human brain is like a lot of growth stops around the age of 26. So it's harder for like older people to change their habits after the age of 26, 28, somewhere around there. Now, I'm not saying they can change them. They can. It just becomes a lot harder for somebody to change their mind. Yeah. While your body stops growing around the early 20s, the later 20s, the brain actually stops developing. And that's what we know from they kind of
put down the weed, guys.
Yeah, right.
Put down the drugs.
So from that perspective, that's what we know kind of about the mind. So like parents are telling their kids like, hey, you know, you can't be playing video games till 2 a.m. because that'll get you nowhere in life. That's having a fixed mindset, right? But then you look at all these Fortnite kids that are 14, 15, 16, as early as 6 years old, by the way, that are really good, and they're making more money than probably 90% of the world, right? They're making $200,000 a year. They're making $400,000 a year. They're making $1 million a year just playing a video game. Yeah, it sounds like just a video game, but it's more than that, right? I mean, it's that mindset, the mindset to want to get better, right?
So let me ask you a question real quick. So what's the thoughts that goes into a good mindset, as in, like, let's say there's a mindset that everyone wants to get to and they need to get to. So we're talking about sports psychology.
Okay.
So what are the thoughts that person should run through their head?
So are you saying like how to have like a positive mindset going into something?
To have that positive sports psychology type of mindset where you want to have this mindset to be a winner. You know, 'cause you don't want to be a loser in life. I get there's going to be failures, but just give me some thoughts of what goes on in the head of a champ.
I think the first thing that comes down to is understanding that failure is okay, right? Because what does that translate into? Well, if you're failing and people are telling you suck, right? Like that's a negative mindset, right? But you got to tell yourself, hey, how am I going to learn from this failure? So you got to kind of alter the way you think with these things, like having a negative, like, and everybody does it. It doesn't matter how great you are. You're still going to have that voice in your head to tell you, hey, you know, don't listen to those doubters, or you're starting to listen to those doubters and it's starting to get to you a little bit and it's eating up, but you got to like get to a point where you have to have that positive energy, whether it's learning how to educate yourself to get better or falling back to the basic skills and the basic mechanics of the sport that you're doing or the game that you're playing, right? Because in reality, the best players are the ones that have the best basic mechanics in a game, right? Whether it's moving, whether it's aiming down sight, peeking around a corner and like Call of Duty, whether it's building great buildings and compete in box fighting in Fortnite, whether it's knowing your rules in football or, you know, stuff like that. So from that perspective, it's the mechanics. But then like, I also think you have to have a ritual and a routine every day, right? You have to listen to other people that are where you want to be, right? That are already achieving what they want to achieve so you can achieve what you want to achieve, right? I think you can learn from every situation and every experience, and you can learn something from everybody, whether you don't like them for who they are or what they always say, but there's something you can always learn from somebody, whether it's changing your personality or perspective. I'll give an example. So we play together on Fortnite and Call of Duty, and like I've played with other people too that are always negative and saying, oh, you suck or you can't build, right? But then that just draws you down, because then like the next game you're going to go in with like, oh, well, he just told me it sucks, so like I'm not going to get any better. So like your teammates also, I think, play a big perspective when it comes into having that positivity, because you're never going to get better if you're playing with negative people on your team, right? And you don't ever want to have that kind of negative perspective from it. So like, what are your kind of thoughts on it?
So I asked you the thoughts of what should be going on in your head, right? So would you like me to piggyback off of that?
Yeah, piggyback off of the question you asked me. I'm just curious what your kind of perspective would be.
So I think to be, you know, that champion and like have that mindset is that you're just going to have grit for every day of your life, or at least competing, hopefully for the rest of your life. But if you're competing, grit, I feel like, is a backbone of your success, because you're going through day in, day out, and you're just willing to give up that extra rep or whatever the case may be. You're willing to go further than the person across from you. That could be esports. You can be on your stream for 8 hours and then go off stream and then still practice a little bit more. And that's grit right there, in my opinion, right? That's just esports. Mm-hmm. But in football, again, that can be more reps. That can always be in the weight room the earliest. Maybe you can leave you can be the last person to leave as well. Mm-hmm. So I think just that mindset of, I'm going to beat you, and so I'm going to do whatever it takes. My hard work is going to pay off. And to me, I see that in a lot of these athletes, where, like Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, he would be in the gym way before the game would start. Forget who was saying this, but the other player came in, saw him warming up, so they warmed up for about an hour and a half. And the guy was like, all right, like, the game's coming up soon.
I think it was Dwayne Wade. Is that his name?
I mean, it wasn't him who was saying this, but he said,
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
He went back into the locker room, and then eventually after the game, he was like, Kobe, like, what's your secret? Like, you're in here before me working out, yada, yada. And he goes,
I saw you come in.
Yeah, I saw you come in. So, like, you had
a straight line.
So, I don't know. I think that's just one aspect of it, but I think that's almost the most important. We can continue to talk about, positive thoughts.
And kind of like speaking about like Kobe Bryant, he kind of put in perspective like this. He was doing an interview with, I don't know if it was Tom Bilyeu or somebody else, but he said that I wake up at 4 a.m. and he kind of breaks down like his practice routine. Like, right, while most people are sleeping till 6 or 7 and then they get in the gym, he's up at 4, he's in the gym by 5, right? He works from 5 to 7, goes home, eats breakfast, right? He's back in the gym by, say, 11:30, 12, works for 2 more hours, goes home, eats again, refuels his body, rests. Then he gets another workout in again for like another 2 hours, eats, rests, recovers. Then before bed, he gets another workout. And so, where he's getting, say, 3 to 4 workouts in, where most people might get in 1 to 2, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why, like he says, like, that's what made him who he was, right? So, and that's where he comes into the perspective, like, that person's never going to outwork me. Right? Because mm-hmm. I'm going to be the hardest worker in the room. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to be the last one there. And, even like when he was in Italy, he would like play soccer and stuff like that, and then go on the basketball court, because their basketball courts and soccer courts were like on the same like field, I guess you could say. Yeah. So he would kind of go and back and forth and play those. So like, just from his perspective, like, and piggybacking off of what you said, like, with even like football, you're going to have to do the extra stuff when the coach isn't there, right? You're going to have to do stuff when nobody's watching, right? You're rewarded in public for what you practice years in private, right? Tony Robbins said that. And it's so true. The stuff that you do when nobody's watching is where you're going to be rewarded in public with the,
and that's not, and that, right? And that stuff isn't physical. I mean, you do physical stuff, but you get to that point by your mind and the mental side of it. You can be the most talented person in the world, like we're going to get to talk about, but mm-hmm. if you don't have that drive, you're not going to go very, very far. So
no, not at all.
Keep going on what you're talking about. I just had to step in real quick.
No, and it's good. Like you're not going to be great by just showing up in public and doing the little stuff, right? It's those people that everybody hates on for driving the fast car and having the big house, but in reality, like they're working nonstop to get there. And then there's a certain point where you almost automate stuff to where you don't have to do it, but you still kind of get the reward of all the hard work that you put in, right? You're going to put in the countless hours. I think Elon Musk even said like he put in like he would sleep there for days and days and days in his office to build Tesla. You're talking about an electric car company, a brand new car company starting in the early 2000s. That's one. Starting a car company in general is really hard to do, and no less an electric car company that everybody told you would fail. and he almost lost. He had like, I think $30 million and was running 3 companies at the time and split the 10 million at each company. Said I could either have one and then it still die, or I can have all 3 and all 3 die, like, or something like that. And it's kind of like it's taking risk, right? It's being persistent. I think persistence is key, right? Because you know what a Chinese bamboo tree is? You know the story behind it?
Bamboo tree?
Yeah. Do you know
the story? No.
Okay,
I know bamboo trees.
Okay, so the story behind a bamboo tree. The question is, does it take 5 years to grow a bamboo tree or 6 weeks to grow the bamboo tree? Like, if you had to answer, what would you say?
I would probably say the 5 years.
Okay, so good answer. So the question is, yes, it would be 5 years and 6 weeks. The reason it would be 5 years and 6 weeks is because you plant the seed today on March 4th, 2021. Mm-hmm. Well, by March 4th, 2026, you'll have it sprout up, right? It'll start with the head of the plant, essentially, or whatever you want to call it.
Be
right? The question
is just the head.
Well, yeah, but in 6 weeks, it grows up to 90 feet. So the question is, did it take 5 years and 6 weeks to grow 90 feet or 6 weeks to grow 90 feet? Right? But you're constantly every day, you're watering that seed, right? So your craft is that seed that you build, right? So if your craft is football, right, you have to water that seed every day. Now, granted, in high school, you don't have 5 years to play, but how can you translate that? Well, say take this year. Well, you have every day. You have 365 days, right? You have to water your seed, whether it's studying, whether it's putting in the work in the gym or doing the extra stuff, the plyometric stuff. All those little things, you have to groom the roots into the ground, essentially. Like you're watering so the roots go into the ground, and they're building up that tree trunk so it can grow 90 feet. Right?
You're either building it, you're either building every day, or you're stripping down. There's no
in between.
Yeah.
So that's always the question. What are you building there, right? So anything that you do, and this doesn't even have to do with just like esports or regular sports. It's really any craft that you have. Mm-hmm. It's going to be those long days, those doing multiple things at once, trying to balance out your time. Like that's what I'm working on right now, right? So I have the one company. I'm starting another one. I just started it this week. Coaching, school, police academy, hopefully soon. So there's a lot of things going on, but it's just this. It's that grit, the persistence for something to take off, right? At some point, something will be able to take off for you, whether you have a couple business ideas and stuff like that. But you should always get one going. And I know this isn't really a business podcast for this episode, but you got to get one going to get the next one going, kind of thing. But going back. You just gotta. It really, I think, education's a big key in learning. It's listening to other podcasts, right? It's reading the books. Like something I wish I would have did in high school that I do now because I've learned from that. I don't want to call it a regret because, like, I guess in a sense you almost kind of regret it, but at the same time you have to learn if it's not too late, and it's not too late, right? Like reading books about other people's success is how you can become successful. I think. I read The Third Door by Alex Banayan. Great book. It explains like there's always a third way to do something, right? There's always a third way. If you get into a nightclub, there's you could be the pretty girl that cuts in line. You could wait in line for 3 hours to get in, or you can go around in the back alley and through the door and through the kitchen and then get in.
It's like Coach and Ralph. Just find a way.
Right. So there's always going to be a way for whatever you want to do. Like kind of what do you have there with that?
So you hit home a lot of stuff. So I'm going to move on to another question for us. That's okay with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I put down why is it important to have this mindset, like advantages, which we already kind of went over a decent amount. And there are disadvantages. So like, are you open to talking about some disadvantages, at least maybe you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always sacrifice, right? Like, would that be a disadvantage? Yeah,
so I would say yes and no, but like the reason why it's not a disadvantage as an advantage, it would be you're grinding at your craft, right? But again, that sacrifice could be time away from your family.
Correct.
If you have a wife, kids, you're not seeing them as much because you won't see them as much if you're grinding at yourself, your goals and everything like that. They can come along, but that sacrifice, especially like you said, like if you grew your company, your first 10 years might be so exhausting. You might not be able to see, let's say, your girlfriend or whoever it may be, even your family. You might not see them for a while. Even if you do, just probably a day at a time, something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But once you build that and you become very, very stable, then obviously you can see them. But that sacrifice at first is very hard, at least for me. Like, not really much as now because I'm still, at home and everything like that. But I'm sure soon enough when I have my own job and I'll be out for 12 hours a day trying to sell my medical stuff, I'm going to have to sacrifice, some time. But then also with sports, so let's stick on the sports side a little bit because we're trying to drift away, which is fine. But the sports side of it, if you're waking up that early, you're losing your sleep. Something like that would be a disadvantage, right? You want to be able to have enough sleep. Losing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a sacrifice in that sense. Like, you're not going to sleep 8 hours, but unfortunately, like, sometimes, like, that's what it takes.
You don't.
So
Steve have to do
it. Steve Harvey kind of said it best with that, right? He was talking one time to his audience. And the stock market. He's talking about the stock market, and he says something along the lines like, if you're in California, you're 3 hours behind, right? The stock market opens at 9 a.m. If you're not up by 6, you're already missing out on your success, right? You have to get up at 4.
I thought they opened up at 8.
Or maybe it's 8 o'clock. I'm sorry, it might be 8 o'clock.
The stock.
But so, they're already making choices for your future in your stocks that you invest in, and you're sleeping. You need to study those things. Now, me personally, right now, I'm not to a point where I can I kind of understand stocks a little bit, but I'm not to the point where I want to learn more about them yet. I will in the future, but there's only so much you can do. Now, if somebody came along and kind of explained to me, I might do it sooner. But again, I don't have the whole lot of money to invest in those stocks. So that's kind of why I don't know. I know it's a little bits and pieces of it, but they're already making choices for you. And kind of going back about the sacrifice that you were talking about, I remember Ninja was doing an interview one time, and he was talking about his Halo tournaments, because a lot of people don't know that he did Halo tournaments prior to Fortnite. And I remember he was talking about him having family over, and his mom was like, "Hey, you're gonna come up? Your family's here or whatever." He's like, "No, I'm in the basement." He's honing in on his craft, right? He's getting better at Halo so he can compete at his ultimate best, right? In the game. So that they going back to sacrifice it. And you talked about that with family. Like, you're going to have to make sacrifices doing stuff, not taking vacations like you want to all the time, not doing the stuff that you want to do, the fun stuff, the going to the movies, the playing golf, like all that stuff. Unless you're a professional golfer, like, you shouldn't probably be playing golf or going to the beach every Saturday and Sunday for the weekend down the Jersey Shore. Gary Vaynerchuk said it best, like, in his 20s and 30s, while all his friends were going down to the shore, he was starting a multi-million-dollar company. And look at him now. He has a $130 million company, or it might even be more now. I don't know what it's valued at now, but so it's those sacrifices that will make you great. You can either be average and be like everybody else, complain like everybody else, live the life like everybody else, which, if you're all right with that, that's fine. But the people that want to be great have to do they have to be the best version of themselves that they can be, right? You're either on the train, you're on the tracks. There's no in between. All
right. So off of that, but you asked me before we started this podcast, like, can anybody really, like, get good and maybe, get go to, the professionals in sports, as in, like, if you're not that good at football, could you get there? But now, before you answer, I want to say something, because I think it's very important. Some people are definitely not there physically, as in gifted. Like, if you compare you and me, am I going to be able to go pro in baseball, quicker and easier than you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you even going to get there? You might not, just because of the way you are. You might not be able to throw a baseball, like, in the smooth way you're supposed to, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So some things, yes. But on the other hand, if you work like an absolute dog, there's a possibility, and are you willing to take that, that risk? And are you not really risk, but are you really willing to sacrifice, like we said before? So can anybody get good? Yes. Can everybody go pro? No, but you shouldn't,
I think it's a kind of a subjective question in a sense, like it kind of depends on what you would go pro for. Right. Like I think anybody could really go pro in esports if they put in the practice
esports,
work
yeah.
into it.
That's
right?
Esports.
Right?
That's why
one
it's so
thing.
good.
Physical sports, not always, right? So the story that I like is the story of Tom Brady. Look, I always hated the Patriots when he was on there, but at the same time, Tom Brady's story is really interesting in the sense that everybody told him he sucked. He was a 6th round draft pick. He was, I think, like 290 or 260 something overall in the draft. I don't know, it was some high number. It was like over the 200s, but under 300, right? But he was like a 6th round draft pick. And there was like 6 other quarterbacks prior to him that they picked, or 5. And he has, 7 Super Bowl rings now?
Yeah, might be 6.
6 or 7 now. But he has enough for one hand. That's all I know. So
yeah, that's what I know. So.
He has more than, I think, any NFL team individually.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it is.
So I think it is 7 now. I think it's 7 now.
Let me look it up real quick.
You look it up. But the story about him is like he never played football, from my understanding, until he was in freshman year in high school, and then the other freshman quarterback quit, which allowed him to move up the depth chart. And even still, he didn't play every game. And then he got recruited to Michigan State, and I think there were 6 or 7 other quarterbacks. And he said something along the lines like to the other guys, like, hey, I'm going to outwork you, right? So, he put in the consistent effort and work to become the great quarterback that he is today, right? That's why he's still playing in his 40s, right?
So now, before you continue, like with Tom Brady, there's a reason why he's at the top. And it's funny because he's not really athletic, right?
No, not at all. He's
40 time was like his 40 time was in the 5s, which is not good. He doesn't throw very hard. I mean, he throws the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the physical attributes for a pro quarterback. He's definitely a pro styled quarterback, but he's not athletic. And like compared to LeBron James is probably one of the most athletic people in the world. I'm not taking away anything from LeBron James. He's arguably the GOAT of basketball as well.
All right, here's the draft report on Tom Brady. Poor build, skinny, lacks great physical stature and strength, lacks mobility and the ability to avoid the rush, lacks a really strong arm, can't drive the ball downfield, does not throw a real tight spiral, system type player who can get exposed if forced to ad lib, gets knocked down easy. That's his draft report.
So the whole point of our podcast is kind of psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with physical. His rings have nothing to do with physical. So that's just very empowering, at least to me, thinking about that you don't have to have everything laid out for you. No. You don't have to be the most gifted person, but that's grit to me. That's amazing to hear that, that someone.
Hard work leads when talent doesn't anymore. Right? Because talent will only take you so far. If somebody's willing to put in the work, who might not be as strong as you, might not be as fast as you, might not be as smart as you, but if they put in the work, they're going to win. That's the bottom line, right? Take our football team, for example, right? We're never the strongest. We're never the fastest, right? We're never the quickest, but we put in the work, right? That's why we're able to win games. That's why we're able to win championships. We put in the work. Do we fall short sometimes? Yeah, we do. That happens. That's the reality. You will fall short sometimes. You will fail sometimes. That is okay. You get back up, you move your feet, you pick them up one step by one step, right? And you just keep moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes to be great, right? And it's the mindset, right? It's the mindset that will make you great. And that's the bottom line. There's going to be sleepless days, right? There's going to be days that you don't want to do it. There's days that I don't want to get up and go to the gym, but I do, right? There's days I don't want to make videos, but I do, right? There's days where I wish I could go to sleep, but I can't because I'm up till 12 o'clock some days grinding it out with whether it's eBay or, whatever it might be with, making videos for YouTube and stuff, playing games. But like, I don't know. What's your feelings there?
Feelings is in what?
Just like kind of wrapped up that last question there.
I don't know, like what I said with Tom Brady, that's like the most solid proof of evidence of psychology side of it. And also another thought came to my head off of this, so it's not like unrelated, kind of unrelated, but it's related. You'll see. So I already talked to you about this before. You'll remember, okay. Even though this animal doesn't live in the jungle, the analogy and everything to it was really sick. Ray Lewis said, like good. The lion and everything like that, like the elephant's probably the biggest and like the cheetah's the fastest and everything like that. So why is the lion the king of the jungle? Even though it's not the jungle.
No, I get, yeah, it's great.
So that lion is only that badass because of his mentality, right? Mm-hmm. So like that's also another thing where I think about once I saw that video and that clip, I was like, that's so true. And like you can take that to life, like, and sports, you can take it to as a teacher. You may not have all the attributes. Someone's running on the sidewalk right now who's probably, no offense to him, 280, right? Mm-hmm. So it's pretty big. And I just saw him running by on the sidewalk. So he's working. He's getting after it right now. So just wanted to say that. So that lion isn't the biggest, isn't the fastest, isn't the strongest, but that mentality makes him so feared. And that's what you kind of want. Like no one wants to play against Tom Brady. Who wants to play against Tom Brady? So that's where I'm going to end that type of discussion. So is there anything else you'd like to talk about? I know I would like to talk about.
I guess like one more thing. It kind of has to do with this. What is like the flow state? Like, do you know what that is at all? The flow state.
I've heard of it. You can remind me if you would like.
So basically what the flow state is, it's the idea of getting and becoming in the zone, right? So, and the way you kind of know you're there is like you pretty much forget to eat, you forget to drink water, you're not listening to anybody else. You're just there in the moment, zoned into your craft, and you're just grinding it out and killing it, right? So like, and this is something that like I think everybody can work on, and it kind of has to do with that positive mindset that you have to get there, right? Because if you're negative, you're never going to get there. If you're crossing your arms, you're bowing your head, you're never going to get there with the negative energy, right? So kind of getting in the flow state is like why I think those people are great. It's why Kobe Bryant's Kobe Bryant, right? It's why Tom Brady is Tom Brady. It's why Ninja is Ninja, right? You get in the state there, right? It's the idea of communicating. It's the idea of, just living in that moment, right? Focusing on that job that at heart and at hand, like, where you're just grinding it out. Like there's just so many benefits to it. It kind of says here, it could take up to like 15 minutes just to get into that flow state. And then you're in that flow state. It could be for an hour. It could be a little bit longer, a little less. It just kind of depends. But like, I remember kind of being in the flow state. Like even when I was younger playing games, like I'm like, oh shoot, it's already like 8 o'clock. Like where did time go? Right. Like that's kind of being in the flow state. You just like lose track of time and everything. Right. But that's because you're grinding it out and you're just honing in your craft. And I think a lot of that comes with a positive mindset. Like that's in football. That's being in the moment on the field. Like, right. When it's, fourth quarter, fourth down, and you need this big play to win the championship game, right? Like that's just getting in a flow state, in a flow mindset. It's having fucking tunnel vision. Like that's what it is, right? It's having tunnel vision to be the best version of yourself at that moment, so you can achieve everything you want to achieve, right? In that mindset. So that's kind of like how I would probably wrap my portion up of this podcast as far as talking about the flow state. And there's so much. I can't pronounce the psychologist that figured this one out. I'm just gonna call him MC. It's like Mahako. I'm not even gonna bother with it. It's like some Hungarian name, but you can look him up later.
One last thing. I'm not sure if you would like to talk about it, but I would like to. I said one of the questions I wrote down was, what's it like during a big game day? So like, should I have the same routine? So I'm going to just talk about it real quick and then you can give your opinion. So like on a big game day, what I would do was I'd always get more sleep the night before, didn't do any homework, anything like that. If I did, it was done right after school, or I might not have even done it. I get it, like that's probably bad, but at the same time, I did not care at all. And then I'd always get more hours of sleep. I'd always study film before I went to bed, just made sure I got everything down. And I wasn't studying again on the game day because I wanted to be focused so up here and like relaxed state of zen and just, ready to go. So I had everything done before that. And then when I would wake up, it was always early for some reason because I had more hours of sleep. And there's something about my morning. You can tell it was game day because everyone wasn't like really talking, I'm not sure about you, but for football, like I felt like people were just, at least a lot of people were focused at least, and people knew that you shouldn't really be goofing around. So I'd always obviously have a pretty good lunch breakfast, eggs, banana, get that potassium in, no cramps, a ton of water. When I say a ton of water, Sal, I mean a water bottle for every period. So I had a good amount of water.
Like a gallon, yeah.
Yes. So during classes, I tried to focus as best as I could, but it was always about, what can I do today with like the game? Like, am I going to be a good teammate? Am I going to make, some big plays, all that stuff. So in my head, I'm thinking about the game, and it's very hard to obviously go through classes with that, and do well in class, but I didn't care. It's only one day out of the week and it's not the whole year. So I said, screw it. And then after school, the deal, meetings and stuff, we had our dinners and then obviously game day. So with that being said, all that game day stuff, I did have pretty much like the same routine. And if I didn't have that, that meal or something, or didn't drink that extra water bottle, it wasn't going to kill me. So I think having the same exact routine is fine, but if it doesn't go your way, are you going to freak out? Are you going to think you're going to lose that game now? Like how baseball players have a weird superstition where, they don't tight their right batting glove as tight because they hit a home run last time they did it. So they're going to do it now forever. And then if they don't do it as tight or as loose, they're going to freak out. I don't think it's like that because I know baseball players tend to do that. I always mix in some weird stuff, but that's just a baseball thing. So the same routine, I don't think it's necessary, but you want to be almost in the same routine, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
you should be doing almost the same thing, but if it's not the way you want it all the time, it's not that in the world. But I think you should be very focused, and being very focused like that, I think your routine should end up being the same, throughout. I'm not sure if that makes any sense to anyone, but that's where I am drawing the line. So if you would like to, so that to me real quick, that's also another side of the psychology. You're ready for the game when all that aligns up together. You're ready. When you're not ready is when you don't care and you just stay up to 2:00 on your phone texting your side pieces, as in like girls and stuff, and you're not ready. You're not focused. You're already letting your team down by doing that. So what I'm saying is there's always something you can be doing. So like I said, throughout the whole week, we practice, obviously, this, and then especially the night before and the whole day, I'm I'm very focused in on the game and what I could do. And that's mental. That's not physical. So again, that's it. Your turn.
I think that you have to have that routine in place, because I think that's kind of what will set you up for success for that game, right? Because if you feel like you're out of place in any sorts, in a better lack of words, like feeling uncomfortable and not becoming comfortable, I think it kind of messes with your mindset, right? Because you're not going to feel confident in what you're doing, because you don't feel like in the moment to be there, right? I think having that routine puts you in that flow state of mind, like, and that mindset to be like, hey, today's fucking game day. We're going to put on the boots. We're going to strap them up and we're going to get ready to go, right? It's going to be a fucking war out there.
Yeah.
Right. And everything you said, drinking the water, eating the right stuff during the day, going to bed at the appropriate time for yourself, right? Not stressing out, not worrying, not being depressed, not having anxiety or any of those like negative mindsets to have that might or could come. I think having and staying in that routine every time that you need to for that moment is definitely critical in that perspective. Like for instance, like me and Bags, we would every day we get up, we work out, or I would work out in the morning, and then sometimes I'd work out in the afternoon too before the game or whatever. And then we would go to the Amish market. We'd grab our donuts and our meats and food for the week that we would typically buy for ourselves, and then take that home or whatever. And then we would go to Chipotle at 10:45, where you're pretty much the first customers there for the day. We get Chipotle for anybody on the coaching staff that wanted it. We go back to the high school, we eat, we lift, and then we start our football Friday stuff that we would do. Any of the jobs that we were assigned, I had music, so I did take care of the music and stuff like that. And Bags would do the quarterback stuff, the balls and all like that. So we had those routines that we did, right, to put us in that state of mind for game day. Now, regardless if we won or lost, that didn't make a difference as long as it does make a difference, but as far as being in that moment, in that state, that's what we need to at least feel focused for that day, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like
you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up
for success.
Yeah.
Basically. Now, not every day you're going to be successful, even with your routine. That's reality. But I think it reduces reduces the amount of times you won't be successful and increases the times you will be successful, if that makes sense. Right. So I think that's why having a routine is very critical when it comes to doing what you want to do, whether it's football, baseball, soccer, wrestling, esports, gaming, business, school, whatever it might be, whatever you're trying to be successful, or I should just say competing at, you should have some kind of routine. Every player should have some kind of routine, what they're doing.
And I agree. And I like what we talked about today. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that we didn't touch on, but I know we touched on a good amount of things. So any viewers out there, if you have any thoughts or anything, or at least agreed with us, that's also good. If you learned something, that is also good.
Yeah. Look, even put in the comment section below, wherever, we share this podcast or whatever, we want to know, reach out, DM us, reach out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, reach out to, my channel. And who knows, like next time we might even bring it up and talk to you guys about that. But we definitely would love to hear opinions if anybody's out there listening, as far as what your perspective would be on some of these topics that we talked about today, and what else you would like to hear as well. We're definitely open to talking about other topics. I'm sure we're going to have other topics around the esports, the gaming, the regular sports, the business, everything, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was definitely good, guys. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. Darren, you got any last words here?
I just would say appreciate y'all if you're listening, and have a good day.
Yeah, guys, just win the day every day. All right.